All right, guys. So our next main topic here today is kind of like a shift in what's going to be. I hate saying this term, but the new normal, as it seems, for the movie theater industry more so than anything, because ever since the COVID era happened, studios and theater chains, I mean, all the theater chains essentially had to shut down, obviously. But then so the studios had to kind of adjust, and now everyone and their mother has a streaming service nowadays. So they had to make a decision of what movies they wanted to put onto their streaming service or just put on a streaming service. If you're like, Sony doesn't have one still at this time, and they never really will, I don't think, because they've actually just made a deal with Netflix to have all their stuff go straight to Netflix. And so, why would they bother? They're kind of in a unique position because they're pretty much the only major studio that doesn't have their own streaming service. So they get to kind of just put all their stuff up for the highest bidder, and that highest bidder was Netflix for the time being. I think it was like a 4-year deal or something they signed with them. But nevertheless, everyone has shifted to what movies do they want to put on streaming, or they just want to push back until the theaters do open, etc. And then we know that Disney Plus has been doing the day and date releases, but you have to pay $30 for the premiere access, which has been pretty much a disaster for them. Like, no movies made any money doing that. Black Widow was the only one that made any sort of money worth talking about because it's the only one they even released the information for about how much money it made. But now, after they've done this for a while, and like Warner Brothers has done, their bit with just putting everything straight on HBO Max, seems like they've decided that, the theatrical window and releasing things in theaters is definitely the best way for them to go as far as making money is concerned. So, news has come out that Warner Brothers has made a deal with AMC to stick to a new 45-day theatrical window going forward in 2022. Not only with that, we did find out that Disney is also doing the same thing with Shang-Chi. So it looks like I said it's probably going to be the new normal kind of universal window. It used to be 90 days, now it's 45 days. So that's good news because I think in the end, the most recent example is Suicide Squad only made like 20 some million opening weekend because it was just there on HBO Max. So like no one rushed out to go see it. And it's kind of a shame. Now I have an idea about how this could all be fixed, but I'll get into that here in a minute because I want to hear what, RIk and Jon, what do you guys think about this 45-day theatrical window? Do you think that's good? Do you think just sticking to doing day and date is what the kind of the future is, so they should just do it? Where's your headspace at with all this, Rick?
I it's hard to say. I mean, I think it's all right. You'll just have to kind of see how it goes, and just everything's changed so much with this pandemic and everything between streaming services and theatrical releases and everything. It's just feel like we're in a new era of like the way things come out now, and it's just you kind of have to just roll with the punches, I guess.
Do you think the 45-day window is better than going day and date, though?
Um, I don't know. I really don't. Like it might be. So it's 45 days after it's released.
So it's gonna before any movie is gonna go on any streaming service, it's gonna play in theaters exclusively for 45 days.
Oh, okay. I
It
mean,
used to be 90 days.
that
So
is probably a good thing because you're gonna get those bigger box office releases and all that, and, like, just like with you and John, like, I know John really likes the entire theater experience, and with this, I think, people will get that still, but still have the option down the road, which 45 days isn't that long. It's, what, a month and a half?
mhm.
Um, that's not too long to wait to watch it at home. I mean, how long did you have to wait before when a theatrical release came out for it to be released on, like, Blu-ray or whatever? It could be, like, a year or 2.
No, it was 90 days before. Prior to the pandemic, it was a 90-day window.
So, I think it's probably a good thing.
So the only thing that
45
I
days?
think is like I think in the current climate they're in now, with like the current situation is like everything is not back to normal yet.
No.
So the biggest thing that they're gonna run into, at least for a while, is for one, for the rest of 2021, they're not going to see the kind of box office returns, even with the theatrical, like even with an exclusive release, they're not going to see the kind of numbers they saw back in 2019 because a lot of people are hesitant to go back to the theaters right now. And some places you still can't go to the theaters right now.
Well, with this whole Delta variant talk too and all that,
That's
I
what I'm
mean, who
saying.
knows if we're gonna be 3 months from now, you know?
Exactly, and that's why we see something like Venom being pushed back 3 weeks. Like, 'cause they just don't know. Like, they don't know if it, like, is it they know, like, right now, probably not a good idea, might as well give them 3
What was
extra
the
weeks.
term you used to use, like, unprecedented times or whatever?
Yeah, that was a term that they always used to use.
Well, yeah, there was one that you used to use specifically, like, towards the beginning of the pandemic and all that, but, like, that's just what it's become, unfortunately. It's
I
just
used to say that because that was, like, the meme,
yeah.
like uncertain times, these every, like, anybody who went onto a stage for anything at all was just like their opening speech would have the you could play bingo, for, like,
These are
any sort of
unprecedented
announcement, and you
times.
put unprecedented times or uncertain times on your bingo sheet because everyone was gonna say it. Didn't matter what the presentation was for. Everyone says it, like, everybody, these are uncertain times we're living in.
Right.
But nevertheless, the biggest thing they're gonna run into with that, other than, like, just people people are just used to not going to the theater now. We are creatures of habits. And, like, for a year or over a year at this point, we weren't going to the theaters. And
Right.
now with, like, HBO Max and Disney Plus, the way they've been doing day and date releases, people are used to just sitting on their ass and watching the stuff.
And some people like that. You know, for me personally, we talked about it before how John likes the theater experience, which I totally understand because that's a lot different than watching it at home. But, you know, for me, and maybe there are certain movies I want to see in a theater, but for me, it is nice to have the convenience of, you know, being a Friday night and saying, like, hey, I just want to watch this on my couch, you know?
Yeah. No, I feel you. I'm in the same boat to where, like, I love going to the movie theater, but I
It's
have a
loud.
77-inch OLED TV,
I'll
so,
just
like, I
throw
get
that
a
in
pretty damn good experience sitting, like, because you gotta think the as far as the whole presentation thing goes, and when you're, like, 30 feet away of a
You've got your own, like,
165-inch screen, it looks amazing, but when you're only 5 feet away from, like, an 80-inch
your
OLED,
TV's,
you're
like,
still pretty good.
incredible as it is, so
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. So, like, I would never understand why someone would rather, like, if you don't have as nice of, like, a home theater setup
right.
as, like, I do, then I would always be in the movies. 'Cause there are some people who watch shit on their cell phones, and
Right.
it's like,
I don't get that. I
and
can
there's
watch, like, YouTube on my
that's what
cell
I'm
phone,
saying,
but
man. I mean, there's always, even back in the day of, like, not back in the day, but, like, people would pirate with, like, a hand cam, and people would watch that. You know what I mean? It's like, you guys need to have a little bit better standards. Like, the audio quality is shit, and you're sitting there watching, people's heads are in the way, and it's like, you wanna do that other than just go spend $10 and just watch the damn movie? But I think the biggest thing they're gonna run into, aside from that stuff, like people not wanting, people not being used to going anymore. Um, the biggest, I think, a bigger thing is, as far as the studio side of things goes, and John, I'd like to hear your thoughts on this as well. Is what kind of movies need to go? Because Rick, you were kind of talking about this a little bit. You were alluding to it in a lot of ways. Is I feel like there's going to be a shift into what kind of movies are going to be successful in the theaters. Like, they're going to have to choose, and you can kind of see Disney kind of has done this, but they're going to have to choose what they actually want to put in theaters and what they don't want to put in theaters because it's not going to get them the kind of return that it used
well, there's
to.
certain movies that, like, need to be in theaters almost, you know? Like, let's say, like, an IMAX or a 3D movie, which they're not really doing too much of anymore. Like, you need to see that in the theater.
If it's made for that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, that's what I'm saying. You're going to have to decide, like, because my thing is with it, it's like, are you going to get a big enough turnout to, the movie theaters for like an animated movie, like something like a non-Pixar animated movie.
Just like one of those generic, like,
Yeah,
DreamWorks
like
kinda
DreamWorks makes like a new thing, or like Angry Birds 2 or Angry Birds 3,
that doesn't need to
whatever.
have a theatrical release
Well, that's
in
the thing.
these times.
Yeah, and before it would go, but, like, is that something that's going to get people to go to the theaters for in an era where they're not used to going to the theater?
Unless you're talking,
I
like,
don't think
some
so.
box office Avengers level movie or Marvel or Star Wars or something, I just don't see, at this point, a lot of people, like, doing that, but
That's what I'm saying. Like, I think those big tentpole movies will be the ones that would be successful going to and having a theatrical window. I think it's gonna be a lot harder for just, like, lower, but like indie films, like I don't think is there was already a difficult enough time getting people to go out and see indie films before this. But
Yeah.
now that everybody's just used to sitting on their ass and not having to go to the theaters, and like I said, some people still can't go to the theaters, don't feel comfortable going to the theaters. I feel like the studio is going to be in a tough position to have to say, like, well, what movies can we put in theaters that people will actually go out and see? Because right now we have Disney with Free Guy out in theaters, only in theaters. And it's, I think, John, you said it's only made about 20 some million, which is good
20,
for,
20, 26. Its domestic take for this weekend is estimated
yeah,
to be 26 million.
which is pretty damn good when it's a new franchise. It's a one-off thing. Like I said
In
off
the
the
midst of a
top,
pandemic.
that's what I'm saying. It's in the pandemic. It's a new property. So like that is pretty decent numbers.
Right.
But would something else without like the star appeal of Ryan Reynolds, would it be as successful?
No.
Because we know
People love Ryan Reynolds.
exactly. Like Suicide Squad comes out and makes about the same amount of money, but Suicide Squad costs like $150 million to make.
Right.
So it needs to be in theaters to make that money back. But because it was on HBO Max, because of the time we're in right now, it didn't make enough money. In all reality, John, what do you think about the 45-day window? Do you think it's a good move? Do you think there's any validity to what I'm saying, where it's like it's going to be like studios are going to have to be a little bit more decisive on, for one, how they make movies, because like, are they going to spend $150 million on movies anymore when it's going to be uncertain if people will even go out and see it and support it, even without a day and date release? Because that's what you look at Free Guy. I don't know the exact box or production budget on that, but I imagine it was pretty expensive. I imagine it was between 1 and 200 million. So it's like, are we going to see as many of those movies? And what kind of movies are they going to be making to actually go into the theaters? Because I really do feel like anything short of your big tent poles, I don't know if people are going to be as quick to rush out anymore. This all may change. This is at least in the immediate times right now. Because we also saw with Disney, like they had like 2 or 3 Pixar movies come out, and they didn't even do premiere access on them. They just put them up, which I thought was really strange.
That is strange. I mean, the Premier Access at least gives you the option to like make a little more money with it.
Yeah. And so it's super weird. Where's your headspace at with it, John? As a big moviegoer yourself.
Yeah. I don't know. I'm actually. I mean, to be honest, I'm pretty worried about movies in general and the theaters. And I was a staunch believer that once the vaccine was out, once people had kind of gotten themselves used to the way that things were now, that everything would kind of return to somewhat of a normal. I didn't think there was any way in the world that Black Widow and Fast 9 wouldn't get close to $100 million. When I thought they would both break $100 million openings domestically, and I thought that they would go on to have not maybe billion-dollar box office runs, but $500 million box office runs. I thought people were eager to get back out and return to some normalcy of life. Apparently, people are eager to do that, just not at theaters. They'd rather go hang out with their unvaccinated friends and spike the COVID numbers, I guess.
Right.
But so I don't know. I mean, I'm trying to figure out how I want to frame all this, but Suicide Squad only making 20 some odd million was really disappointing to me, especially when you have movies like Deadpool and stuff that traditionally had come out and were making easily $100 million. I thought maybe half of the, even $50 million would have been some of a disappointment to me, but it still would have been like, okay, pandemic, resurgence of Corona with the Delta variants and whatnot. Like, okay, I can sort of understand that. But it's for it to be as low as it, and then it dropped off so much as it's only making 7 million. I just thought there were more people in the world that enjoyed the theater going experience. And I'm finding out that's not the case. If you give people, it seems like if you give people the option they're going to choose to stay home and watch it on streaming, which means that the theater experience just isn't as alluring as it's been dropping for a long time. And maybe that's, a cultural shift to the way we consume content, with people have been, people for years now have been consuming content on their phones. I mean, my fiance, she watches, we have a 60 or 70-inch television in the living room, and I'll walk into the living room any time of the day, and she'll be sitting there watching a show on her phone, and the TV will be off. And to me, that's just baffling, because
That is
I
baffling.
Right.
want I want to, I want to watch it on the nice big screen. I want to immerse myself in the world, and a
Not on a
lot of I
6-inch
think
smartphone.
I think I consume content much differently than a lot of people do nowadays. I think a lot of people consume content to just consume it and be aware of it so that they are involved in the social conversation of it. Whereas I more consume content to actually consume the content, because I want to immerse myself in that world, and I break from reality literally when I'm watching these things. You could ask me, like, there could be a fire going on in the house next door, and I probably wouldn't pick up on it because I'd be so engrossed in the movie that I'm watching. So I think that my perceptions on how theaters and movies and things work going forward is just skewed, and I'm not sure I really know what I'm talking about anymore when it comes to it. It's just a little disheartening, a little sad. I think that there will be a place for movies. I'm worried though that we're not going to see movies like Endgame going forward, because there isn't the justification for a studio like Disney to invest the $400 million in production and marketing for a movie like that, when the fact of the matter is it might only make, 500 million at the box office, depending on, how things go. Now, I mean, I ran some quick numbers. you know you're if $15 a pop for a HBO Max subscription, if HBO Max can get to 100 million subscribers, you're talking about, $1.5 billion a month for HBO Max. That revenue service is going to bring in. They will bring in $1.5 billion with a B each month. Maybe that's enough to justify spending $200 million for, 3 or 4 movies a year that are going to drive subscriptions to that service or maintain subscriptions to that service. So maybe the days of in-game aren't gone. Maybe the dual release, maybe being able to produce an in-game movie and have it only make 500 million is offset by the fact that if they also release it on their streaming service, they're guaranteeing themselves that continued source of revenue in that arena. Maybe that's where the difference is. Maybe that's the equalizer that makes it so that we still get movies like that. But yeah, I'm having a hard time coming to grips with what actually the numbers are saying right now.
Well, and that's the thing. That's exactly what my fear has always been with it is studios need to justify the spend on these movies, these big ones. And if they make an end game and they're only going to get 500-600 million dollars, then that movie's not going to they're not going to put as much money into it as they would have before. That movie costs like 400 plus million to produce and market and everything. They're not going to be wanting to spend that much money if they're not guaranteed to double that or triple that. You know what I mean?
And
Because it's like it's too risky for them.
so for me, I don't understand why that would be the case. Like, why would you not, like, you're saying that making $200 million isn't good enough? Like, what is the
That is what they
threshold
think.
for?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm trying to figure out what's the threshold for what is good enough to make. Like, so does every movie have to have a 2x multiplier in terms of returns for it? Do you have to make at least twice what you put into it in order to make it? And if that isn't the case, if that isn't enough, if you're only making, you know, 1.5 times your money back. Does that work across the board? Do you just stop making movies at that point? I mean, Disney's not going to stop making movies, but how do you determine which movies get made and why? So that's why I'm not sure how those internal numbers work, how they rationalize like what movies do we go forward with and which ones we don't. Yeah, we can make another live action 101 Dalmatians and it could only cost us, $15 million to make, but it may only make $40 million, or it may, and then we've only made, 10 million on top of our production and marketing. But like, I don't know where those numbers all fall out there.
No, yeah, and that's the thing that's like always impossible to really know is like what where are they at? Because like what they like to see is okay, we spent this much money on this movie, and like before they'd put it in theaters and they saw okay, cool, it made this much money in theaters. But now the numbers are going to be all skewed and a lot harder to really like truly read because yeah, they'll have like real time analytics. They can see how many people watch it, how many people signed up when X movie, was released on streaming, blah 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 blah. But the way the money works is just like fundamentally different when it comes to the streaming service. That's like a whole different division, like in the company. So it's like they have like their theater and production division that they get a certain budget to make X movie and stuff, but then the streaming stuff is a separate thing. That's like why Zack Snyder's Justice League was even able to be made because it didn't become a film production division spend. HBO Max covered the cost. That's what justified the spend. They really only did it to draw in subscribers for HBO Max. So that's the way they were able to justify the cost of that movie.
Right.
And if they're gonna do like even if they stick to the 45-day theatrical window and that becomes like the new normal quote unquote for the theaters and everything, in the current climate, it's just kind of hard to say if it's gonna be justifiable because, like, look at Suicide Squad. Like, would that have made 200 million opening weekend right now with a just, a exclusive run? Like, because the numbers would suggest otherwise. Because 'cause there's been some movies that just haven't. But it's crazy because you got with Warner Brothers and
Well,
HBO Max, they made a ton more money with Godzilla versus Kong, and they did the same thing with it.
well,
This
I
is
was
an anomaly.
well, but Suicide Squad is rated R. So Godzilla versus Kong wasn't, and so I think that hurts it somewhat. I
Yeah.
think I mean, there were a lot of articles this past week about whether or not Suicide Squad was as much of a disappointment as the numbers would appear that it is. I personally am hoping that it's not. I'm hoping that there's internal numbers showing that it did really well on HBO Max because the other problem with Suicide Squad not doing well box office wise is it completely shifts the discussion too about what kind of movie how you determine what movies to make because Suicide Squad by all metrics should have done great. It not only has is it a major superhero film, which superheroes tend to be doing well. It's a rated R superhero film that had a lot of jokes that I felt were reminiscent of something like Deadpool, which if you watch the trailer, I can't imagine, seeing that. And if you're a fan of Deadpool going, nah, I don't, that doesn't look like something I'd be interested in. No, it's that same over the top kind of humor and action and stuff so I thought that would play well. And then the critics, the critical reception and the fan reception for those that did see it was all through the roof. Everybody loves that movie that's seen it. And for some reason that's not translating into box office numbers. Now, hopefully it's translating HBO Max numbers, but and then the other thing I haven't actually the 45-day window. I mean, if that's what the theaters or if that's what the production companies want in the streaming services and they think that they'll be able to maximize their return on investment by limiting that window to only 45 days so that people are so that people will stick with the streaming services knowing that they get the movie a month and a half after it comes out in theaters, then that's great. My one concern is like are theaters going, because apparently theaters operate on this razor thin margin, and hopefully they will be able, because traditionally theaters have gotten more of the box office the longer a movie stays in the theater. So typically that opening weekend, most of those receipts are going back to the movie companies, and the movie theaters only make money the longer a movie stays in. Well, if after 45 days you're kicking it over to a streaming service, is there some agreement that theaters are now making more of that front end money? At this
There's not.
point, with the problems that AMC and Cinemark and all these other theater chains supposedly are having financially, I mean, you're going to have to look at the only solution to that I would say or see would be, Disney or Warner Brothers or those companies stepping in and buying the distribution, buying the theater chains and start managing theaters. I
Right.
mean,
Then you run into the problem where you run into the same problem that you have with ISPs right now. The only ISP in your area is Spectrum, and Spectrum's dog shit, but you can't get anything else,
yeah,
so you have to get Spectrum. So when the theaters start owning, this is why the Paramount decrees were a thing in the past, even though they didn't get like renewed or whatever. The Paramount decrees are no more, but the Paramount decrees made it to where a distribution or a production company of studio could not own a theater chain. They had to be a separate thing, because what you'll end up getting, like that same thing where if you have a Warner Brothers owned theater, guess what movies are playing? Warner Brothers movie.
Yeah, exactly.
You ain't gonna see
sure.
the Avengers movies. You ain't gonna play that shit in
Like
their theater.
MCU specific
Yeah,
theaters.
you're gonna have a
and-
Disney theater, and it's like, I really wanted to see, Avengers Endgame, but I only have Warner Brothers theaters within 30 miles. Like,
Yeah.
and it's like, okay, that's just like a no-win situation for everybody. But that is a very real thing that could happen
I could see it happening
with
down
the
the road.
decrees gone, like 100%. I think it's idiotic for any, like, if you owned a movie theater, you want because like you said, they do have a razor thin margin, so you'd want to be able to get as many asses in the seats as possible. So withholding movies because they're not from your like
That's not
partnered,
going to work.
it's just stupid. Like, it's just like you just
Mhm.
want more people to come in and buy popcorn and stuff, because that's where you make all your money. Speaking of which, what AMC has decided to do, this just came out. I didn't have it as like a topic because I figured it'd probably get brought up in one of these many discussions we have about this stuff. But what AMC is doing right now to combat the, lack of sales, I guess we'll say, just to make more money, instead of making it enticing for people to come back to the theater, running deals or anything like that, they're actually just raising ticket prices. So that's what they're doing to get more money, John. AMC is raising ticket prices. They're showing less screenings per day, so they have less uh,
Overhead.
overhead. And then what
Yeah.
else are they doing? They're doing something else. They were doing, and it's just like the stupidest things. It's like, you want people to come into the theaters right now, and it's like people are already not wanting to go, and
And they're making it harder.
yeah,
Yeah.
you're making it harder by playing less shows, and you're charging more money. Oh, and the concession prices are going up too. So it's like
Oh, God.
they've
Yep.
just increased everything, and it's just because it's just like the studios. They want the short-term gains. This will get them short-term gains because they're going to make more money as people come in. Yeah, great. And it's just like the theaters. They want to be able, or the studios rather, they want to put a movie out and see that movie making money. And that's like the problem they're going to run into, is like when you're getting less money in the box office, it's like you, my biggest worry has been, well, what does that mean for what kind of movies they're going to make? What are they going to like? What are they going to do to justify these $200 million movies? Because in the end, the justification isn't there.
Right.
Like, they can't see an instant justification. So that's what's always worried me. But this is a good segue into what I can't believe this hasn't been a thing, because I told you, John, earlier in the week. It dawned on me what I know. All you movie studios and theaters out there, this is exactly what you need to do. It solves all your problems. The studios can get day and date releases, you can get an exclusive theatrical run, and you can cut down on piracy. All by doing this simple thing.
Just
All right,
one simple trick.
this one simple thing. Okay, now listen to it. What you do something along these lines. There's multiple avenues you could do to make this work, but my theory here, my solution to the problem, if you will, was what you do. Say I want to go in and I want to watch Suicide Squad. So I go. The only way I can see it is I can go and I have to go buy a movie ticket. But what you do is you have a code on each of your movie tickets. All right, this is just one example you could do. Because you could do like a point system or something else otherwise. But I'm going to give you the like easy one-to-one solution here.
Lay it on me.
I go to the movies. I go to a theater. I buy a ticket to see Suicide Squad. Great. And there is a code on that ticket that lets me go and redeem said code onto HBO Max, so I can now watch it on HBO Max because I have proof that I went and bought a ticket, essentially. So the buying a ticket in the theater gets you the one-time use code to unlock Suicide Squad on your HBO Max account. There you go. That's your day and date release. So you're forcing someone to get access to that title on the streaming service same day. You have to go to the theater first, but then you can instantly unlock it on HBO Max. You're done. You can have that you could do it in many ways. Like you could do it for a one-to-one, like I said. So if you go and see Suicide Squad, then you get to redeem it on your HBO Max account. Or you could have it with like a points-based system. So you have, you go see 3 movies and then you can redeem a code to get early access to any movie that is currently in its theatrical run or something. You can make it as granular as you want. Easiest example was you go buy a ticket, then after that you can just watch on HBO Max. You could also limit how long you can watch it there. You can do whatever the fuck you want, but that's how you get access to it. You got to go buy a ticket first, and then you have it on your streaming service. Now, to cut down on piracy, while the movie is in its theatrical run, all you do is you put a goddamn watermark on the movie when you're watching it. And the watermark would just be literally the person's email address who is signed up on that HBO Max account.
So that way, for piracy,
that way, no one is going to pirate that copy because their fucking email address will be on the screen. That's how you do it. And it's only for movies that are in its theatrical run at that time. I totally understand because I've had to watch movies with watermarks on before. And
yeah.
it is annoying, but it's not a big deal. It doesn't distract you. It's most of the time it just pops up every once in a while and just like has it running across the bottom of the screen, or it's up in the corner and it's just there briefly and then it's gone. But it'll do that periodically throughout the movie because the only way around it at that point would be cutting out those bits and pieces and then posting it, or you just have it on the bottom throughout the entire part of the movie. But it's just like what is it called? Like a translucent to some degree, so you still see right through it. But that is like literally, I thought about that and I was like, I don't know why they're not already doing that because that gives consumers an incentive to want to go to the theater because they'll know, like, cool, I can go see this in the theater. I wanted to see the movie anyway, but then after I do, I could just redeem it and I can just watch it on HBO Max now. So the only thing you're cutting out at that point is return viewings. But with day and date, you're already losing that anyway.
Right.
So it doesn't really matter. You're at least getting the one ticket purchased by everybody in order to do it. So then obviously too, like, if I went with my whole family to see it, then yeah, I would only have to redeem one code and then I have it. So like but you're already losing that money, that return view money with the day and date stuff. You know what I mean? So I don't know why that's not already a thing because that's something that every studio could then partner with the theater chains and they could just sort that whole thing out to where they provide that's the only thing you'd have to really do is have all your tickets have the code on them.
Yeah.
Like, and that would be the only hurdle you'd have to jump. So all the studios who have their own streaming service who would want to do something like that, they would have to work something out with the theaters in order for them to provide the codes on all the tickets and everything. That's really the only thing you'd have to do. And I feel like that would make consumers happy. And I think that would make the theaters happy and that would make the studios more money because you're guaranteeing everybody watching that movie in theaters first. So you're getting a ton more money than anybody who wanted to see it. They're going to go see it in the theaters no matter what. Then after the theatrical window, it's just available like it normally is. This is what it is. I was just surprised that, like, I thought of this and it's not already a thing.
You think of a lot of things.
Like, I know, like, the Powerpuff Girls show that they're doing, that was totally my fucking idea. Literally, like,
Stole it from you.
they literally stole it from me. It was exactly granted, they're apparently running it into the fucking wall, though. Like, they shot the pilot, and it sucked, so CW made them reshoot the pilot, and then the star, Chloe from, what's her name?
Agents of
Chloe
Shield.
Bennett from Agents of Shield.
Mhm.
Yeah, she's off the show now for scheduling conflicts, which is bullshit because you signed
What
up
else
to
is
do
she
the
doing?
show. Yeah, it's like you
Yeah.
signed up to
Plus,
do
what
the
else is
show.
she? Yeah.
Yeah. It's like if the first pilot you shot, they liked it, right now you'd be shooting the show. So
Yes.
you don't have
Yeah.
scheduling conflicts or
No.
you couldn't have started doing the show. So
Plus, I haven't seen any trade reports about something her being cast in something else.
yeah,
So
like
yeah,
there's the conflict is that either she didn't wanna be a part of it anymore or they didn't want her to be a part of it anymore. Either or. I don't know which. We'll never know which because obviously they're doing the amicable thing of saying scheduling conflicts. So either
yeah.
way, it's good because it was my idea. You stole it from me, CW. But John, what do you being the bigger moviegoer here out of between you and Rick, what do you think of my idea? Do you think that'd be a valid idea? You think that
Sure,
would be,
it's a good
like,
idea.
good?
I mean, it's they do a version of that with comic books right now. Marvel and DC both at one point where you bought a
Yeah.
comic and there's a code in the comic to redeem your digital copy of the comic, which was a great deal because you could pick up a comic, you could get your code, redeem your digital copy, bag and board your comic, and then
Yeah, exactly.
go back and watch it, read it on your iPad later on if you want it, or read
You
it
just
on
have
your
it on the
phone later
go.
on if you want. Yeah, exactly. If you wanted to revisit that comic at some point, you don't have to break open your bagged and boarded comics to look at again or wait for the trade to come out. So yeah, digital code. They do it with
You did it with,
with
Blu-rays too.
movies,
Yeah.
Blu-rays, and yeah, you buy your 4K Blu-ray, and you get the code to have the digital copy. Which so yeah, I mean that makes perfect sense. It's a great idea. Um, I, I don't know that they'll do it.
I don't
Unfortunately,
know
I
why they're not already
because
doing it. Like
because I think they'll. The one thing I do think is that they will say, well, but then John Knight can go. He can go to the theater and buy his ticket, get his code, go home, redeem his code, and then have all his friends come over and watch the movie. And so we're still only getting one ticket sale, and you're still sharing the viewing experience with
oh, yeah.
others, and then you're
But the
not you're cannibalizing some of the theater experience by doing that.
well, that's happening right now.
Oh,
That's like
definitely.
that's my point with it, is like, you're still going to have that like, you're going to miss out on repeat viewings, but if you're
Hmm.
doing day and date releases, you're missing out on that anyway. Because only,
Hmm.
like, diehard movie fans who, like the, movie theater experience, they're the only ones who are gonna be going back to see the movie in theaters again if it's
Yeah.
available on HBO Max. Like,
Yeah.
if it's already available somewhere else, why I don't personally know. I've heard of people, like, well, writing into other shows and, like, who have said that, like, they've seen it, like, 4 times now or whatever, like Suicide Squad or something, and, like, that's great. They need to get the money that they're due because there was really Suicide Squad was so good, it deserved to make a ton of money. Like, it's a
Yeah.
phenomenal movie. It's great.
Yeah.
But I don't know a lot of people who wouldn't, like, wanna go back and pay to see it when it's like, "Well, I have HBO Max. I can just if I wanna watch it a second time, I'll just watch it there. I don't need to go back to the theater." Like,
Right. You don't
I
have
mean, so
to.
it's like you're already getting that, and, like, I saw someone who threw, like, a watch party, so, like, 20 people came over to their house and watched it. Like, so you're already getting that with day and date. So I think at the very least, if my whole thing was for this proposal for them, I want to cut on this money because you already stole my Powerpuff Girls idea. So this is mine. I get a cut on I developed the code stuff, and I get a cut for that. It's like the guy who created the credit card reader gets like a penny every time or like 1/100th of a penny every time
God,
someone
could you
swipes a
imagine the
card.
money
You know what
that
I mean?
guy makes?
Yeah, exactly. So like that, I want a cut on this because it was my idea. But this only is a justifiable thing if they are going to continue doing day and date releases. If they're going to not do day and date releases, then there's no need to do this. But if there comes a time where, like I said, if we're in a situation where people just aren't going back to the theaters anymore, like they're not making enough money there, whatever, then you need to do something like this because then you're at least forcing that ticket purchase at least one time, as opposed to if you do a day date, less and less and less people are going to go if they can just pull it up on HBO Max for free, essentially. You know, like at least with Disney Plus, you had to pay the $30 like for the premiere access.
Right.
So at least they were doing that. But I don't know the piracy thing though. I don't know why they don't do that already. Like, for everything. Like, because frankly, if I owned a streaming service like that, if I would have a watermark show up every once in a while. Just like, just here and
Like,
there.
can't
It's not gonna ruin the
couldn't
movie.
people
It
couldn't
would.
people couldn't people still go in and just cover that up? I
They
mean,
could. But then you
I'm
have that
thinking,
there,
like,
yeah.
if you're talking about, like, a watermark that only like, one that was that overlays on the background of it, like, that affects then the quality of, like, the movie and whether or not you can, I'm not sure how that affects how much you enjoy the movie, but if you have one that just pops up for, like, 5 seconds every 10 minutes,
Mhm.
somebody could theoretically go in and alter that video file to eliminate that and just
Not show it.
as simple as put a black bar over
Yeah, they
it.
could.
And then you only have that black bar show up every few minutes. So it's you're either dealing with the watermark or the black. I just feel like that's if
The
you're already
problem
dealing
is
with the
people are
watermark, they're not
lazy.
gonna Okay.
Like, that's the thing, because the best
You
way
don't
to
think
do
they'll
it.
take the time to go in?
Not everybody would. It would cut down on it significantly. It really would.
Okay.
Because if you put someone's email address as the watermark, people will be a little bit less hesitant to want to even try to do it because if they miss the watermark at one point, because if it was me, I would have it show up in different positions at random times. You know what I mean? Because then, like, so at one point it'd be down in the left corner, then all of a sudden it'd be up in the top middle, and it would always go around the sides, on the, like, so it would be out of view. But you make it the person's email address, people are going to be a hell of a lot less likely to even bother doing it. Because, like, this is obviously their personal email or one they're using because they have a payment service tied to it to pay for the streaming service. So, like, you could definitely go in and block all that stuff out, but because you're having it show up in random intervals and random locations, it would deter a lot of people from going through the effort of posting it out to share it out on through a torrent service or something. Because at that
Yeah.
point, it's like, how much time are you investing in here just to put this out there for other people? You know what I mean? Because people are lazy and people are selfish.
Right.
So that's the easiest way to
I
combat it.
Yeah. I know theaters, I mean, movies have been talking for years about how bad piracy is, and I never thought it was that bad, but there's a security guard at the place I work, and he loves this app on his phone. He's got this app on his phone that he uses, and he tells me about all the time. Oh, you gotta get this app, you gotta get this app. And like he was showing it to me, and like literally any movie that comes out, it like just shows up on this app and he can just watch it on his phone. And it's like
Yeah, like Usenet
I
or
don't
Cody.
Yeah, I was gonna say it's like those fire sticks.
Yeah.
Yeah, this one's called Movesy or something that he uses. He was like, you gotta look it up. I looked it up. I can't get it on my phone. I don't know.
Probably something you
Well,
have
I
to
don't know
like
how he. Yeah, I don't know what how he's.
some
The guy's
backdoor
not
way of
very
doing
tech
it.
smart, so I can't imagine it's something like Cody where he's jailbreaking a device and like putting it on. It has to be pretty dead simple. It literally has to be just an app he gets through the App Store or the Play Store and uses on his phone because this guy could not figure it out otherwise.
Right.
But I I just I didn't realize how prevalent that stuff was. And I personally like I don't want to watch a movie that way. Like I don't want to watch Black Widow on my phone through an app.
Yeah,
But
exactly.
apparently there are a lot of people, because it's free, they'll go ahead and
Yeah,
take that. That's the way
like,
they'll
people are
watch.
lazy and selfish, dude. And it's like if they can get it for free and just watch it on their phone, low effort, like you said, there's no way this dude had to go through any trouble to get this app because he's just not the kind of guy who
Yeah.
would be able to do it.
Right.
So it's low effort, and he's just like, yeah, I just got an app and I can watch it. I'm
But
done.
what
Like, I don't have to drive my car to the theater. I don't have to pay the
I yeah,
money. I
yeah,
can
but it's
Obviously
like but it's
illegal.
like you were saying, like, there's a disconnect between how I
Oh
consume,
yeah,
like you were talking about the people that used to buy the bootleg. Like,
I
I'll
remember
admit,
those.
like, if I could have bought a bootleg copy of 89 Batman back in the day, I would have bought a bootleg copy of 89 Batman day.
yeah,
Not because that's how I wanted to watch it, but because I would want to watch it again and again and again, and that would
yeah,
be the
exactly,
easiest way for me to have done so, would have been to get a bootleg copy, even if it was a handheld, and watch it that way. Like, I would tolerate that as a way to watch it for future viewings,
yeah,
but
I
it's
got to
not
see
my
the
preferred. Like, I would see it in the theater first, and probably multiple times.
exactly.
I got to see the Matrix like that before it was out on video. My friend was just like, "Dude, I got this VHS that my mom got me, and it's like horribly shot version of the Matrix." And we're sitting there watching it, like, "Holy shit!"
Right.
You know,
See, and
like
that
120p.
movie's so good. I feel so bad for you that that's how you experienced that movie. I watched that movie on the biggest screen in my town when it came out, and not having a clue about it. We went to a local mall. The mall had the biggest screen in town at that time. The biggest screen for probably 50 miles for me anywhere, and we just walked in not knowing what it was. Just like, it looked like it had some cool gunfights in
Some
it. And man,
CGI
I came
and
out of that movie just blown away, and,
Yeah,
like,
man.
I
I wish
can't
I could have
imagine
seen that.
having watched it shaky cam first.
I didn't watch
That's
it shaky
it
champ
was so
cam
bad.
first. I watched it on DVD, like, later on, or VHS, whichever, once it officially came out. 'Cause I was only 9
mhm.
years old when it came out, unfortunately, so I didn't see it in the theater at the time. But because that's, like, that became, like, quickly, like, my favorite movie for, like, easily, like, when I saw it on VHS or DVD, whichever it came first, that was my favorite thing for, like, ever. Like,
Oh,
up
yeah.
until, like, because I went and you bet your ass I went and saw Reloaded and Revolutions in the theater. Yes, I did. 9-year-old me didn't know what the fuck the Matrix was to ask someone to take me, like, you know?
Right.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
once I saw it, I was like, "God damn, this is so good." Like, "Oh, man.
Yeah.
Like, this is incredible."
Whoa!
I wish I
Yeah.
could have seen it in theaters for the
Plus
first
plus
time.
plus my mind was just blown. Like, I came out of that I swear to God, I walked out of that movie, I wasn't right for 3 days. I kept going, like, "Is this shit real? Like, what
You
what is
were
going on?"
Keanu when they're in the jumping
Oh,
simulation, and
yeah.
he goes,
Oh,
"Oh."
definitely.
Like,
Yeah.
that's it. Like, that's
Definitely.
that was
My
pretty much
brain that
everybody.
movie messed my brain up.
Dude, yeah, I love that. That's what speaking of which, we got Matrix 4 coming up soon, so, like, I hope we get a similar
End of the
feeling
year?
to that.
End
I
of the
don't
year,
know if they're
right?
still doing it at the end of the year, but we'll see. Yeah, it's supposed to come out in
Because it was
December,
supposed to
but
be part of it was supposed to be part of the release, right? But we
yeah.
haven't gotten a trailer or anything.
No,
So we don't
dude.
have a trailer for Spider-Man either. They're holding all these December trailers for some reason.
Dude, we're gonna get the Spider-Man trailer when it
The
in, like,
Matrix.
a week or 2.
Oh
I
yeah,
can
yeah.
guarantee it. Because
Why?
CinemaCon's coming up. I
What
can
is it?
guarantee
You
you
don't think they'll
Sony's gonna
just hold it
drop it
for
at
Shang-Chi
CinemaCon.
at this point? You don't think they'll hold it for
Um,
Shang-Chi at this point?
no, I don't think so. I think it's gonna drop at CinemaCon. Because 'cause they're
Hmm.
showing Shang-Chi at CinemaCon.
Oh, you know what Marvel's gonna do? Marvel's gonna pull the who's got the bigger blank move. They're gonna release it the weekend of Fandom. They're gonna
Probably.
steal.
Well,
They're gonna steal.
when
It's
is DC?
October, right?
It's
Middle
in
of
October.
October.
Okay, yeah, because
Yeah,
I think CinemaCon is, like, in a week or 2.
is it?
Yeah, so that's why I was saying, yeah, it's August 23rd to August 26th. So by the end of the month, I would be willing to put not a lot of money, but at least $5 on the fact that we will have a Spider-Man trailer for sure. Because Sony is opening up CinemaCon and they have, like, I think like it was like a 2, 3, or 4 hour presentation, and they're opening up the event. What else are they gonna show?
Right.
Like,
Like,
they got Venom, Morbius, and then it's just that. It's just Spider-Man. I don't know what else. I mean, they got other shit, obviously, but like those are the main things people are talking about, you know? So like I would be shocked if I honestly wouldn't be surprised if they were doing a surprise screening of Venom for everybody, in all honesty.
that'd be cool.
Because it's already supposed to have come out of this time, like by now. Like so was Morbius,
Or some kind
for
of like
God's sake.
sizzle reel that's unavailable anywhere else.
Yeah, I'm sure they'll play a lot of stuff for them there, and like I can almost guarantee you that Spider-Man trailer's coming. But nevertheless, let's move on here because we got some more stuff to talk about here. So guys, what do you think about all that? There's a lot to unpack there. We still got more stuff to talk about, and like, we'll just have to kind of see what the landscape is going forward. I think the 45-day window is ultimately a good thing. The only problem is people actually going to see the movie in that 45-day window, despite, not having access to it. Because now we're talking only a month and a half they have to wait. I think the studios are going to have a problem. At least right now, at least maybe this will all be different in 2023, maybe or 2022 rather, maybe 2023 as well. Like maybe people will be back and just used to just going out and seeing things in the theater, and they want to go see things in the theater. It's hard to say right now with all this, the Delta variant, people being used to being at home. I don't know. People are lazy. Like I said, it just is what it is. Whatever you guys think, and do you think my idea about the code redemption for going and seeing the movie, then you get access to it? I think that's a great. I would take advantage of that service personally. If I knew I could go see a movie and then watch it at home, like after that, like immediately, I think that's a great deal. I would be all on board with that. So whatever you guys think about all that, though, let us know down in the comment section below.